I am going to share with you the fastest way to build rapport with shippers. Now, what exactly is rapport? Because it's not something that's easy to define, right? So, rapport to me is really the first step in developing a relationship, developing a friendship. It's the first step of that. So it's not salesy in nature. It's really all about communicating and making a connection. So that's how I define it. Now I know that's a little bit difficult to put into a box, but I think it's important that you understand that in sales, communicating and building rapport is an absolute must. If you are going to be successful as a freight broker or a freight agent, you are going to need to learn how to build rapport. And the fastest way to build rapport is to use what I call icebreaker questions. Now, these are questions that allow you to start building a connection and allows an opportunity for you to mutually share information back and forth. So it's a two-way dialogue. So I'm going to break this down into 5 buckets. All right. There are 5 different types of icebreaker questions, and I'm going to give you some examples, right? There are 5 types of icebreaker questions that you can ask. One is about the location, right? Their geography or location. Another one is about, here's my notes, by the way. The other one is about their job or career. Another one is about school and interests. Another one's about activity and or content. And another one is about company related questions. Okay. So those are the 5 buckets. I'm going to share with you a couple of examples. Now, this is not going to be exhaustive. I'm going to share with you a couple of examples of the types of questions for each one of those buckets that you could use as a way to develop rapport on future sales calls. All right. So number 1, location based. Here's a perfect example. This is really simple and fundamental. What's something most people don't know about Buffalo, New York? Now, that's a question you could ask the prospect. Now, obviously, you have to pick the right timing, but it's a perfect example of how you can start a dialogue and communicating where it allows you to mutually share back and forth your curiosity, your experience, and that starts to build that know, like, and trust, which is very, very important. So that example of what's something most people don't know about Buffalo, New York. Now, of course, if you're going to ask that question, you might also want to know something that's interesting or most people don't know about the city that you live in, right? So if I'm in Buffalo and I'm asking somebody in Dallas, they may ask that question back. As a matter of fact, I would love it if they asked that question back. That shows real rapport. And so that just makes sense, right? So that's a perfect example of a very simple question that can start to build rapport. Another location-based question is it true what they say about living in Los Angeles? Are the freeways essentially like parking lots, right? So that's an example of where I took a city and I talk about, is it true what they say about living in X city and state? And that's going to start a dialogue because trust me, if they live in LA, they've been caught in traffic. Chances are they absolutely hate traffic and there's no way to escape it. So it's a topic that's going to bring out some sort of mutual sharing, right? Which is really, really powerful. So those are examples of location-based questions that you can use to build rapport. The second bucket we're going to talk about is jobs and career questions, all right? So number 1, how did you get started in logistics or shipping or whatever department they're in? Chances are they're in the logistics, shipping, transportation, warehouse department. How did you get started in logistics? That shows a lot of curiosity. They probably have an interesting story. Maybe it's a really good story. Maybe it's something that they're happy about. Maybe it's, but ultimately it's going to allow you to start a dialogue, right? And again, this is not that typical salesy conversation, right? That most brokers have. This is something where you're showing curiosity. Hopefully they ask you that same question back. Once again, that's going to show that you have the fundamental steps of building rapport, building that relationship, building trust. Okay. Another question about job and careers. I saw on LinkedIn, you used to work in X field or in X industry or for X company. How was it transitioning over to your current company? How was it transitioning over into your new role? How was it transitioning over into your new job? right? So that's an example of a career or job related question that can allow you to start building rapport. All right. School and interest. This is the third bucket that I said we were going to cover. So here's an example. I saw on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever, right, that you're a big sports fan. You're a football, basketball, baseball, UFC, whatever. All right. Have you ever watched it live? Have you ever been to a live event? And then you listen. So if they're a football fan, right? It's a perfect example for them to talk about their favorite team, the last game they went to, they brought their son, they brought their daughter, they brought their wife, they went to tailgating, whatever the case may be, right? That's a perfect example of how to build rapport. Matter of fact, I have a really interesting story around that I've shared many times. Early in my career, when I started using LinkedIn as a tool to find, connect, and engage with shippers, this is very early in, I didn't quite know what I was doing, but I started a dialogue on LinkedIn with a prospect down in the Philadelphia area. And we started going back and forth about the Bills and Philadelphia and the NFL and all these football rivalries. And the next thing you knew, it led into a phone call, which led to me doing business with that company and doing over $500,000 in business with that company, probably close to $1 million over the time that we did business with them, because we did business with them for probably 5 or 6 years. So that's a perfect example, right? So let's talk about another example of a question around schools and interest, right? I've never met anybody who went to X college before. What was it like, right? So maybe you looked at their LinkedIn and you see that they went to college at UCLA or UNLV or Texas Tech or wherever, right? Florida State, wherever they went to college. Use that as an opportunity to get them to share their experience, something personal, right? It becomes that bridge that starts connecting you and starts binding that relationship, because you're showing curiosity and they get to talk about something that's relevant and important to them, right? So that example of, I've never met anybody who went to UNLV. What was that experience like? Right? So that's a perfect example of something you can use in that school and interest bucket. All right. Number 4, activities and content. All right, let me give you an example here. I read the article you shared on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, on social media. What did you like about it? Right? So now you're asking their opinion. So you're going to have to do a little bit of sales intelligence. You're going to look at their LinkedIn, maybe their Facebook, maybe their Twitter. And if they've shared something interesting, like an article or a white paper or a podcast episode or a video, ask them, what was it that they liked most about that? What was it that they found so compelling? That's going to start an interesting dialogue. And again, this is not the typical salesy conversation that you're going to have, that most freight brokers have, all about, oh, do you have a bid package? Oh, do you have any freight I can quote on? Oh, hey, listen, we have trucks in your area. Oh, the boring, lazy, very salesy way that most freight brokers sell, unfortunately, right? So we're here to change that. So that was one example of activities and content, right? The next one is, this is a great one. I found this online. I've never used this myself, but I found this online and I think this is a great question. I'm putting together a list of great blogs and different assets, right, for customers in the steel industry or in the oil and gas industry or in the produce industry, whatever niche you're going after. Do you have any recommendations? So maybe what they're going to share with you is a blog or a trade journal or a YouTube channel or a podcast, right? So it shows, number one, that you are a little different. You're educated about your niche. You're trying to help other people in that niche, and you're asking their opinion. So that's a perfect example. It's a really simple question, and chances are they're going to have a resource for you, right? And that puts them in a position where they're giving, right? And you're positioning them as an authority and someone with experience that you're interested in. So, and then bucket number 5 is company related. So here's a question there. The question is, I came across your company's social media account, while I was preparing for our call, and it seems like a fun or interesting or a fast-paced place to work. What do you think? What's been your experience? So again, you are showing that you've done some research. you're differentiating yourself with that question, and then you're asking for their opinion because you're making it about them, right? You're not making it about you. Even though you're asking them a question, you're asking their opinion. You want to hear from them. Trust me, most employees in corporate America, one of the biggest complaints they have is they're not heard. Okay. So if you become that person that learns to listen by asking good questions, it can be a great way to start building rapport. Okay. Again, the icebreaker is the best and fastest way to start building rapport in freight broker sales. When you're trying to build rapport with shippers, using these types of icebreaker questions and any questions that you want to come up with, right? These are just examples. You could come up with hundreds of different permutations of this. You want to make it personal. You want to make it custom. You want to make it relevant, right? So you're not going to ask all these same questions to every single person. You're going to want to customize it to each person. So coming up with a variety of these questions can be extremely powerful and extremely beneficial, okay? So remember, the goal is not to interrogate your prospect, is not to interrogate the other person. It is simply to start a two-way conversation, right? That allows you to make a real connection. All right. That's the building block of having a friendship. And again, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. So the better you are at building rapport, the more successful you will be as a freight broker, freight agent, and or in any sales environment. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, make sure you like, comment, and share wherever you're checking this out. If you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, and you're just getting started and you're looking for some direction, you're looking for some help, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. We've trained over 10,000 students, been in business over a decade, and we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. I can't make it much easier than that. I've taken all the best parts that I learned over my career as a freight broker after doing over $200 million as a freight broker and then selling my freight brokerage. I now have trained literally tens of thousands of students. Many of them have went on to build 6 and 7 and even 8-figure businesses. So I'm super excited. Check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com.